Hello, you malty, meandering malt misfits, and thank you to Franz Larson for the malt mention, and welcome one and all you whisky curious and malt mates. I'm Ralphie in the bothy with Ralphie Review 960 extras, and the extras means that I'm not doing a specific single malt review. For the specific review, you'll have to look at Ralphie Review 960. This review is about more general information that's going to help you appreciate whisky better. But before I go any further, I need to move my focus window on the camera. That's better, because it's shifted. And if it's not, there's a wee box you see on the camera I'm using to record this, and if it isn't actually positioned on me, I will go out of focus and probably everything else in this studio with me. Yeah. So we're definitely in focus now, and I'm going to talk about how you learn to know your palate. Because when we start out with whisky, because of the internet, because of forums, because of whisky clubs, it's never been easier to get other people's views, perceptions and opinions and reviews about a specific whisky or other quality spirit. And what we tend to do initially, while we're still building our own self-confidence and self-knowledge about our own palates, we tend to go on other people's descriptors. But the problem we have is, it's fine to start with, but fairly early on, you want to understand your own palate, because it's rather like seeing colours. Everybody sees colours generally the same, so everybody knows, unless you're particularly colourblind, what green is, what blue is and what red is. But depending on the warmth or the coldness of our vision, we get slightly different shades. So although our eyesight is similar, it can vary slightly. It's the same with our taste buds. You know, one person can taste chocolate and get some really complex and abstract chocolate notes, and other people taste chocolate and it's just sweet and vague and relatively bland. So the sensitivity of our tongue and of our mouth feel, it varies as well. And for most of us, we're not master blenders. We do not have exceptional noses and exceptional palates. And frankly, that's not a problem, because if you do have an exceptional palate and an exceptional nose, bad whiskies are only going to be a worse experience for you. Just saying it as it is. So the way we get to know our own palate is start with separating smell and taste. Ask yourself, have you got a good sense of smell? Do you smell cooking in the kitchen? Do you smell the different perfumes when you're in a perfume shop? Are you particularly attracted to perfumes? Are you particularly attracted to scents, say for example, of flowers in a summer garden? Do you have a forte for it? In the same way that an artist, for example, has a forte and a strength in their interpretation of colours. Do you have it in your interpretation of smells? And the fact is, it'll probably vary slightly. Some of us will prefer floral, some of us will prefer sweeter notes. In fact, most folk prefer sweeter notes because it's what we're groomed on as children, and it makes up so much of what we consume from the food that's supplied through supermarkets. Because sugar's a cheap and addictive ingredient, and everybody eats too much sugar. That's what happens. So, but I'm talking about sensations there. But sensations often accompany flavours. Lemon, toffee. So toffee and sweetness, it's a natural companion. Lemon and sweetness, not so much. And one of the ways that we isolate flavours is by actually tasting them directly. So when you're chewing a toffee, for example, slow it down and really spend more time examining the taste of a toffee. Likewise, buy a lemon, wash it under the tap, cut it up, sip the lemon juice, eat some lemon rind, and eat some lemon pith, which is the white between the rind and the interior flesh of the lemon. This way you get a full comprehensive flavour range of what lemon is. It's the same with chocolate. If you just stick to a bar of Cadbury's, heaven help us, it's a very inferior chocolate. Or Hershey's, another one. You're not really going to learn much about chocolate until you buy something from Mars or Lindt or Suchards. Or you go for more upmarket chocolates and you get to understand and examine the range of milk chocolate to plain chocolate and how much complexity you can find in plain chocolate due to the absence of the sugar, which allows the bitterness, the natural bitterness of chocolate to be more apparent. It's the same with coffee. If you're just drinking instant coffee, you're only going to get a limited range of what coffee flavours actually taste like. So at this point, you want to get some fresh ground coffee. You want to try some coffee in different cafeterias, different restaurants, which are made using different types of beans. And you may get to know that some coffee shops give you a much better coffee flavour experience than others, which is why I never buy coffee in Starbucks. End of. I mean, if I want to taste cardboard, in my opinion, it's a perfect place to go. But in fact, there's a little coffee shop on the island where I live called Spill the Beans. And they have the best quality beans that make the best quality cup of coffee that provide the best experience of flavour. And when you're actually consuming that coffee, you're aware you're consuming more and it's worth the modest premium for it. And it works. The more we start to self-educate through foodstuffs, through other drinks, through non-alcoholic drinks, the more we articulate, the more conscious we become of using these flavour references in relation to whiskies. And also, we have strengths and weaknesses within our flavour range. So, for example, we may have a weakness for not being able to spot smokiness or savouriness in a whisky. So we might not get as much out of Laphroaig as someone who's much more savoury or fusile note sensitive. Whereas if it's a kind of light, non-peated whisky like Arran, for example, or Auchentoshan, two examples, you might find that your lack of sensitivity to umami or savoury or fusile notes, it just doesn't matter. And in fact, your complexity of sourness that you may naturally have more than actually makes up for that. So, although we roughly, generally, smell and taste the same, the more we examine it, the more complex it becomes, the more singular we're able to identify the individuality of our senses. Our sense of smell, our sense of taste, and within our sense of taste, our sense of perception of actual flavours, which we relate to whisky like lemon, toffee and butterscotch, and also sensations which occur in whisky, big time, whether it be sweet, sour, salt, savoury or bitter. Many people struggle with bitter to start with. You need quite a few years' experience before you get more comfortable with bitter, which is why you want to avoid the likes of Mortlach and some of the more savoury single malts, like Linkwood, Pulteney, for example. Sweet and sour, we access and we become familiar with very easily. Saltiness takes a little bit longer, but we'll notice it in something like salted caramel. We'll notice it in something like salt or brine notes in the likes of, for example, Springbank or Brochlarry or Paul Pulteney again. But savoury isn't so easily found, particularly in official brands. You'll find savoury notes in Mortlach for sure. It's one of its highlights. And in Springbank Longrow, for example, you'll find savoury notes. Edradour's another great example. But there's not many Scotch whisky distilleries nowadays which strongly feature savoury aspects to the character, because simply it's not fashionable. Although when you get more experience with whisky, you do actually want to connect more with these odd sensations and the fusion of sensations, savoury bitter, for example, or savoury salt. It comes with time, there's no rush, and in fact, one of the mistakes you can often make is to try and rush things along so you learn quicker, sooner, and it really doesn't work that way. Our palates vary, our learning speeds vary. I mean, I'm over 30 years in whisky, and what I must say in passing is that after 30 years, it's actually a joy to open some of these independent bottlings, the more obscure ones, and taste a really bonkers version of a single malt that I already know reasonably well, like Highland Park. So if I buy a bottle of Orkney, for example, either from a retailer or increasingly at auction, to get a bit of a yesteryear experience at a reasonable price, you'll find some of these weird cask influences on a whisky which no way in a month of Sundays would a supermarket be able to sell that whisky. But a specialist retailer, for the small group of people who have increasingly weird palates like me, the market's there and it is growing. So I would conclude by saying, don't rush to learn about whisky. Really just chill out, kick back a wee bit, keep your consumption modest and enjoy the journey. Just enjoy the actual landscape as you're going, rather than rushing to buy more expensive whiskies or more complex whiskies, thinking that after a few years you're ready to like them, but you don't. You'll have a glass, it'll be totally weird, you put the cork back in the bottle, you put it away, and then you forget about it for another year, and probably at that point when you come back to it, your palate's a lot more ready to get more enjoyment out of the experience. So there you have it, just sharing the wisdom here, sharing the malt moments. So I'd like to introduce another whisky just to conclude this extras that I'll be reviewing later in the year, and it's Arran Quarter Cask. This is an independent, no it's not, it's an official bottling, and it's a non-age statement Arran. I have been sipping these whiskies side by side, and it is a fantastic way to learn about a whisky, is by direct and immediate comparison with what's in another glass sitting next to the glass you've got. So rather than having one big glass of whisky at a time, have two smaller glasses of whisky, or perhaps three small glasses of whisky containing different whiskies, and go between them back and forward, because that is when your senses are getting immediate physical flavour comparisons that lets you access and understand what you're drinking and what ultimately you're enjoying. The thing about this quarter cask, I'm going to leave it another month or so to oxidise a little bit more, because it's quite oaky rich. It's quite oak wood infused with American white oak. So that needs to settle down a little bit. And with experience you'll get the knowledge as to how to gradually approach a bottle of whisky so as to get the most out of it, because sometimes the worst mistake you could do is drink it all within a month and then move on to your next bottle, and you've never really got to know it. Getting to know a good bottle of whisky should be an experience that takes you at least 6 months. This is why you never open and finish a bottle in a short space of time. A bottle will comfortably last, when it's opened and stored properly in cooling conditions, it's going to last for years. There is no rush. It's not like a bottle of wine. Any bottle of spirits is completely different from a bottle of wine or a bottle of beer because of the alcoholic strength, and therefore you've got to approach it differently as a result. So don't be taught how to drink whisky by wine connoisseurs. It's my final parting piece of advice. Do you know, it's lovely sharing your company. I do have a Patreon channel if you'd like to subscribe there. It's called Ralphie, R-A-L-F-Y, and you'll get extra videos and access to my monthly live streams. And thank you for watching. Click subscribe if you'd like to. You will notice that there is no product placements here that I'm sponsored to promote. Everything I review, unless I specifically state otherwise, has been bought by myself, and it's my Patreon subscribers and my YouTube channel revenue which pays for buying these bottles that I review, so as to maintain my independence, and importantly to make sure that I'm reviewing something that's been bottled for a member of the public to buy. So the chances are what I'm reviewing is more similar to what you're experiencing, because I haven't been gifted the bottle. Always embarrassing when someone tries to give me bottles of spirits to review. I just have to say no. Most folk know that it's a no from Ralphie. Some people persist. It can get quite embarrassing. So just a reminder, distillers, nothing. Don't contact me. Don't send me anything. Don't give something to someone to give me just a personal gift, because, you know, that can happen as well. I'm aware of it. Anything that comes through the post that's unsolicited, I just give away to somebody else that'll appreciate it, and I never mention it. So you'd be wasting your time. Thank you.